Herb, the reason I asked us to get together was that last week, Chris Martin called me. Actually, I can't remember if I called him or he called me, but we were talking. And his concern was that there were people that were coming in, both employees, and he couldn't tell about visitors coming into the buildings that he was in charge of. And he was having a horrible time trying to keep cleaning done, not knowing who was in there, exposing people. And his real concern was that if we end up with sick people coming into the offices and getting all or many of the town employees ill, that he was going to not be able to keep town government moving. And so after we talked it through, we last week at least, we said that this wasn't an emergency in Chris's mind, so that having the Board of Health get together an emergency session didn't seem justifiable. So he wanted to talk to the select board last night. And I said, well, if that's the case, then we'll just post a meeting last week to get it so this Board of Health meeting would be a legally posted meeting. Chris did get back to me this morning, and the select board felt that his concerns were valid. They would like us to basically move the town offices, municipal buildings, into a mode that we were some time ago, that just said visitors couldn't come in, and that the doors were basically locked for non-employees. And they would like to do it on a, let's say, they said, Chris originally said month to month basis, but he said, you know, what I really would like is, it sounds like a 2-week period, that select board meeting to select board meeting, and they would look at the town data and make up their mind whether they felt like we could back off and suggest that we back off. So that at this point, what Chris's request is that the Board of Health say that town municipal buildings cannot be entered by other than employees until the next select board meeting. And I think I looked that up, until like the 7th of February. And then
And what if the employees are not vaccinated?
I don't know. He did not talk about that.
But you intimated that there are employees who are not vaccinated.
I'm sorry I intimated that, because I don't know. I don't know.
It wouldn't make sense to me if we were to prevent the public from entering municipal buildings because of whatever our rationale, and the rationale presumably is that they're not vaccinated, or we don't know their vaccine status, and still allow employees to enter the building if we knew they weren't vaccinated. So
Go ahead.
that doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't to me. Actually, you know, that you're saying it. We certainly know that the risk of having this disease, as the data says, if you're not vaccinated, you got a big risk of bringing this into the building.
There is a column in the Gazette today which takes issue with that. I think the data is not good, but there is a guest column on the editorial page on the right-hand side that says, in Canada, 76% of hospital admissions have been vaccinated. and only 24% have not been. And of course, that's exactly opposite from all other data that I've seen. But
Yeah,
anyway, back to our point, if you want to say that no one should enter, that the public should be barred from entering the building regardless of their vaccine status, then I think employees should equally be barred from the building if they haven't been vaccinated, because we know then their vaccine status.
that would make sense to me. That
Well,
would that would make sense.
Well, Connie and I ran into exactly that situation.
You did.
Yes, over at the where Colleen is. I forgot.
I think you told me. I think you told me it was the assessor's office at the time.
Yeah, I can't remember
Yeah.
the woman's name, but she had not been vaccinated and didn't think she was going to be vaccinated. So I thought that that was wrong. Any rate, I could fully support making the public buildings off limits to the public
And non-vaccinated people.
and unvaccinated employees. Yeah, I think that that would help protect our responsible folks who are trying to maintain our town government.
In the short term, I'm asking this, trying to probe your thoughts.
Yep, yep.
Would you leave an out for the short term that lets people get tested? The problem is the antigen tests are not good for very long.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you broke up right as you were saying the key point there, Dick. Would you repeat it, please?
Sure. What I was asking is if you would look at leaving a window that said for the short term, if you provided test results saying you weren't infected, if you weren't vaccinated, would you let people come in? And then my comment was, if you're using antigen tests, that what I'm reading is their period of validity is very, very short.
And that's my understanding as well, Dick. So I guess if you had an employee who did an antigen test every morning before work, could they come into the office? Oh, God. I don't know, Dick.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I would presume if you did that on sequential days and they were all negative, that the person was not infected, but I don't really know that.
You know, what's interesting though, is as you're talking it through,
Yeah.
I'm wondering how different that is than the test and stay that the schools are using to let people come in, and they're doing exactly what you're saying, Herb, is that saying you have to clear every morning.
Yes, right. But equally, Dick, for our people who've been vaccinated, we know some of them can get infected. And we know that if they do get infected, they can transmit virus. So the slippery slope here is steep. you could get draconian enough to say that every single person needed to get tested every single day, regardless of their vaccine status, to minimize the chance that anyone could transmit virus. I don't think I'd want to say that, but that's probably not a false statement. If you wanted to be as careful as you could possibly be, then every single person would have to get tested every single day.
Yeah. And then you look and if you say we're trying to reduce the chance, not eliminate, but reduce.
Yep. Right.
You could also say you need to be. We probably have to define what we look at as vaccinated, is if that's 2 doses or Johnson and Johnson 1 dose plus a booster. I guess that's probably the accepted term for fully vaccinated these days. And I guess you could put then if you were within 3 months of having had a positive COVID test, then that probably puts you into protected mode. How would you think? Again, I'm just trying to get your thoughts because they're brand new thoughts for us.
Yep.
What would you think of telling them, okay, this first 2-week period, because this is a brand new discussion to us, is that until the 7th, we're going to say it's closed, but after that, we're going to be telling them if we're closing it, we're also going to say if you're not vaccinated. I'm just asking for your thoughts, Herb.
Until the 7th, I guess I'm not sure what you meant by that, Dave.
The 7th is the next. It's probably the 6th. I'm not sure if the 7th. I think is a Tuesday, but you know what? That's not true. That's not the next. That we're only at the 11th right now. So
we're January 11th. Yes. Yeah.
So that has to be a 1 month period or a 2 selectmen gap is what they're looking at. Not a 2-week period, but a 2 meeting period. Maybe it is. That's a long time, Herb. When I thought we were just doing it for 2 weeks, that was a different story. But now that you're talking about a month,
yeah,
then that could be the end of this peak.
Well, you and I both hope that's the case.
We do.
We hope it's something like South Africa and there's a tall peak and a rapid fall off.
Yeah.
But we don't know that.
So if I start to look at my view of definition of municipal buildings, I specifically asked Chris if he considered the library a municipal building, and he said yes. In my mind, the schools would not be considered that because they've got their own system in place. What are you thinking, Herb?
I would agree. I would agree. The schools, I think, are different. But then, what about Dave DeRozier's shop? Is that a municipal building? Certainly looks like it to me.
It does to me too.
Yeah. So we've got a number of places that would be impacted unless we narrowed the definition.
Oh.
And since the I think the issue that we're trying to deal with is trying to be responsive to our citizens at the same time being as protective as possible to our employees. I don't think many citizens wind up at DeRozier's place, but people do at the senior center and at Colleen's shop.
Yeah,
A lot of people. So if we were to establish a policy, I think I'd direct it toward those two buildings. And
yeah, you're right. I could support what you're saying and saying one is a municipal building as compared with a city yard.
yeah,
I don't know what that means. As you're talking, what does that mean for the police department and the fire, so the public safety complex?
yeah. Well, see, the slope is getting slipperier all the time, isn't
I
it?
know. Chris definitely said municipal buildings.
Yeah.
And, as we're talking, I'm thinking that I could also support something that says we're going to do it for municipal buildings, and so except for the schools. And at our next Board of Health meeting, we're going to discuss whether, and let Chris know that we're going to discuss whether we say that we're going to shut it down to non-vaccinated people.
So what would we be saying now?
It would be, for now, that it would be that all municipal buildings are closed to non-municipal employees.
And without any reference to vaccination.
Other than to be telling Chris that a week from now, it's our intent to say we're going to discuss shutting it down to non-vaccinated people.
Right.
Which go ahead.
And I think that's a nice, fine point that you're making. It's just that I'm not sure how I would respond to someone in town who said, "Why are you closing the building?" I need to go in and talk to whomever. I need to talk to Kathy. I need to talk to. And we said, well, we just decided we're going to close them.
Yeah, but we didn't close them. We just said that you can't go inside. You're free to talk on the phone, to use the internet. It's just face to face that you can't do.
Correct. Yeah, you can't go into the building. You can't go into the building and have a discussion. You can't go in and have your whatever signed. Or the reason has to do with vaccination. And as I said, I like the fine point that you put on it. It's just I'm not sure how well we can defend that fine point.
Well, one of saying you can't go in the building unless you're an employee, that's easy. That's very measurable.
Yeah.
And it could, I just look at the numbers of people in the town and I throw the number about loosely, Herb, because I don't know the number today, but if you're under 50 years old in this town, there's a 50% chance you haven't been vaccinated. So there's a a whole bunch of people that may be unvaccinated that you'd be keeping out.
Yeah. Right. So it then gets back to our other question. What about unvaccinated employees? If the buildings are closed to everyone except employees, what do we do about unvaccinated employees? Because that's the reason we're closing the buildings.
Yeah, the only thing that again I'm at all hesitant is that once we do this tomorrow morning, I have no idea, or I have no idea how many people that you would be saying you can't come to work. I just don't know that. And which is the reason I was proposing that we give that a 1 week period to throw it back to Chris and say, what's going to happen when we do this?
Well, I got the impression from your conversation with Chris that he knew of employees that weren't vaccinated. Now, maybe that's an incorrect view that I got from what you said, but from what he said to you. But that's what I intimated, that he knew there were employees that weren't vaccinated.
What Chris told me he knew is that there was an elected official that came into work while they were positive and supposedly supposed to isolate, and they came into work and didn't tell anybody.
And they
That's
knew
a different story.
That's different than someone not vaccinated. Someone knew they were positive and they came in.
That's what I was told. And then there was another one that was at an elected meeting that this isn't going to help at all. That at a board meeting, and face-to-face board meeting, 2 days later or 1 day later, one of the members called everybody up and said, by the way, I'm positive. But that's not going to fix this either. Neither one of those is going to get affected by what Chris has asked us to do. But Chris didn't tell me that he knew of anybody who was not vaccinated.
Yeah.
He may in fact know of them. I just don't know.
Yeah. Well, if we closed municipal buildings to only employees until our next board meeting, that's how many days?
That's what, a week from today, right?
Is today Tuesday? Yes, I guess it
Yeah,
is.
so it's a week from today.
A week from today. So how effective is that? It prevents some number of unvaccinated people from entering buildings, some number that we don't know, but we know is probably greater than zero.
And we also know, Herb, that our town numbers are terrible in general right now.
They are. They are indeed. As are the towns around us. We're not unique.
Oh.
It's the valley is probably terrible. Well, I guess we could do that. until our next board meeting, at which time I'd like Chris to be there to discuss this as well. What he knows, what he doesn't. Maybe, I guess we could do that, Dick.
Yeah.
And that would be some measure of, it would be isolation and some measure of protection for our employees from exposure to potentially positive people in town.
It would do that. That for sure, it would do that. But I also am 100% behind what you're saying, is that if you've got I don't mean to call it an enemy from within, but if you've got something that the unvaccinated person that's inside, if it's serious enough to be doing something with the buildings, I think it's serious enough to be saying this is a condition of work, and it's time to mandate that if you're going to be in our environment, you have to protect the people that are around you.
And I certainly agree with that. And how do we know the vaccination status of our employees other than what they tell us? If someone says they're vaccinated, do we want to see their card? Do we want to know where they? I just don't know. I'm questioning if someone at this point in time is willing to say they're vaccinated when they're not, then they are obviously beyond pale here.
Yeah, if you just ask me without thinking, and I'm going to give you an answer without thinking about it.
Yeah.
They're within a day or whatever, maybe now, they can't go into a restaurant in Boston without showing they're vaccinated. It sure seems like you'd be reasonable to say, when I ask you at work, you have to prove it too.
Right. And all I'm saying is proving it is a dicey game.
Yeah. Yeah. But at least if we are at this point, it sounds like we could say, starting tomorrow, the municipal buildings are closed to non-employees. And then to be going back to Chris and saying, by next Tuesday, we're going to be discussing whether it's going to be with also to non-vaccinated employees, and see what he thinks and at least get his input. But I fully agree with you, Herb. If the data tells us that the non-vaccinated employee is for sure the highest danger person to the rest of the staff, then we should be dealing with that.
Yep. Okay. Since there's only two of us, but we constitute a quorum, I make a motion that our municipal buildings, including the senior center and and town hall, I guess, or the town building, whatever its official name is, be closed to everyone except employees from tomorrow until
They asked for February 7th. Let's give them to the 7th.
till February 7th or
Yeah, that's when they asked for, and then to reevaluate.
the select board.
Yes.
They asked for February 7th, which is a month.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's two meeting cycles for them.
Well, I don't know whether I want to close them for a month until we have a full discussion on Tuesday.
But we could reevaluate. Well, what if we only closed them for 2 weeks? Which would allow us to do the whole reevaluation with all 3 members of the board next week.
Well, 1 week or 2 weeks, we close them until the day after our next meeting, when we could have a full board meeting and Chris.
I could support that too. So if we look at, we close them through the 19th.
Is that what next Wednesday is?
Yeah, next Wednesday would be the 19th.
All right, then I move that we close the seniors, the municipal buildings, including the senior center and the town hall offices, from tomorrow, which is the 12th, through January 19th.
I'd like to add in that we do it to the library and I think you just call it the municipal building, sir, for a week. You could exclude the public works building.
Well, we would have to, well, we don't have to exclude the public works building. Not obviously, the workers have to get into the public works building if it snows, but they're closed to the public. I don't know whether I said that. Municipal buildings, including the senior center, town hall, offices, and the library, from tomorrow until
The 19th.
the 19th.
Okay. I second that. In favor? I am.
I am.
Okay. So we'll do that. And then I've got to get back to Chris and tell him that we want to reevaluate this thing at our next, on the meeting of the 18th, and that we'd like him there.
Yes. Okay.
And I'll also tell him that our plan is to exclude unvaccinated people.
Correct. And it absolutely includes employees.
Right. And so that'll give him a week to be thinking about this. Okay. Thanks. Have a good one, Herb.
Okay, you too.